And welcome back. Now, the Pretoria High Court has dismissed with costs former South African Airways board chairperson Dudu Myeni's application for leave to appeal her delinquency case. And this follows an earlier ruling which declared Myeni a delinquent director and barred her for life from serving as a director in any entity. Now, in the latest ruling, she has also been denied an opportunity to provide further evidence linked to the case. The organisation undoing tax abuse, Outa, as well as the South African Airways Pilots Association have taken her to court, challenging her decisions during her tenure at the airline. And to discuss these latest developments further, we're joined by Wayne Duvenage, Chief Executive Officer at Outa. Wayne, thanks for your time. Good morning and welcome to Morning Live once more.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
And perhaps just to take a few steps back, Outa and SAPA argued that Dudu Myeni's conduct was careless and that she was negligent during her tenure as chairperson of South African Airways. But can we just take a few steps back and take us through your evidence and your arguments that supported these statements?
So, as chairperson of SAA, executive director, non-executive directors such as Dudu Myeni may not conduct themselves in a way that interferes with business. That's why they have an executive team, an operational team that gets on with the job. And once the board resolutions have been passed for various decisions, they need to be left alone to do their job. And we found that very often Dudu Myeni and others on the board were interfering with the operations for various reasons, but many of them for corrupt reasons. And we saw how she interfered and stopped the Emirates deal that was going down with SA. And had that deal been done, there was a cash flow of additional 2 billion rand a year that would have flowed to SAA. This would have been very good for the airline and wouldn't have been in a position that it is in today if that had happened. On top of that, there was the Airbus transaction where Dudu Myeni interfered. There was the BNP Capital transaction where a boutique finance house would have earned 249 million rand for doing nothing because the Treasury Department and Finance Department within SAA was already doing this work. And so we saw so many unnecessary interventions that smacked and reeked of corruption and maladministration and poor governance. And we decided that at that time in 2016 and 17, when state capture was in full force and nothing was happening with the NPA and the Hawks, that civil society needed to do something. And that's when we decided to lay a charge of delinquent director because holding people to account has many forms. One of them is criminal charges, but if the criminal justice system was compromised, we needed to use other avenues, and that's why we bought that case. It took a long time, took a lot of money, but we eventually got there, and she was ruled earlier this year to be a delinquent director, and now she recently in November challenged that and lost again with costs. So I think Dudu Myeni is running out of runway now. I think she's run out of runway.
Wayne, what further evidence did Dudu Myeni want to present as far as you know?
Well, recently Yaki Quinani, another director, was at the Zonda Commission, and the Zonda Commission gave her feedback on evidence that we'd provided them regarding a meeting that she had with us. It was a meeting that she requested. We didn't request it with her. She came to our offices twice to give us information, and we shared that with the Zonda Commission. Dudu Myeni believed or felt that this information would have changed the outcome of her case. She believed that we did a deal with Yaki Quinani and said that if she gave us information, we wouldn't charge her. Well, this was absolute nonsense. It had no bearing on the case. In fact, we have laid complaints with SAICA and IRBA about Yaki Quinani's conduct. And really, Dudu Myeni was clutching at straws. Her legal team was clutching at straws when they tried to bring in this new evidence. The judge heard our arguments and heard her arguments, and it was really a farce. And then the judge threw that out. So, we're very pleased with the outcome, this recent outcome. And we believe that their legal team will petition the Supreme Court to appeal this matter, but that's fine. Quite frankly, I don't think they will entertain that appeal, but let's see what happens. But I think this case is extremely strong. The the fingerprints of corruption, especially during people's conduct during the Zuma era, who really thought that Jacob Zuma would have their backs forever and a day. They've been very careless in their brazenness around corruption. And as I said, the fingerprints are all over the cookie jar. The information and evidence we've got about this behavior is so strong, we don't believe that she will go anywhere other than jail in time.
So, Wayne, some of the criticism leveled against this particular action against Dudu Myeni is not really about taking on Dudu Myeni and her role and having her declared delinquent, but the fact that Dudu Myeni seems to have been singled out. And, those who are critical of this say, why haven't you taken on others as well? Not just Dudu Myeni, but those who served on that board with her at SAA at this time, and also board members at other state-owned entities who have also presided over, running those entities into the ground.
Yeah, no, very good question. You must understand that bringing these claims, these are not claims and charges that are brought by the criminal justice system. This is civil society bringing these claims, and they're very, very costly. This case has cost us several million rand, and we don't have a lot of money to throw around like this, but we have to choose our cases very carefully. Dudu Myeni was the chairperson of SAA and was headlines on a very regular basis, and this was one that we chose to proceed with. It doesn't mean to say that we're not or haven't charged others. We've laid criminal complaints to the Hawks against many CEOs, Brian Molefe, Anush Singh at SAA, in fact, the entire SAA board. And it is about time that the government and the criminal justice system did their work. And this is what we believe is starting to happen now. It wasn't happening under Sean Abrahams. It is happening now under Shamila Batoy and Hermione Cranier and the team that is now ensconced in the NPA and the independent directive. So this is good news that the rule of law is starting to flow, because it enables civil society to not have to spend all its time and funds in doing the work that government should be doing. So it is not really our role to have even gone down this road, but we chose this road. We chose a very, very prominent person, because what happens is this case has been precedent-setting. It has certainly sent a strong message out there to other directors, and this case will be used going forward in other court challenges. So this is not about singling out one individual. It's about taking on an individual, because we had to take on somebody, and Dudu Myeni was the chairperson. But others, what we like about, for instance, Andre de Ruyter, he and his board are going after their predecessors that got Eskom into a mess. And that's what we've asked the current SAA board. Do your job. Go after those predecessors, those executives that were sitting on the SAA board before, and non-executive directors, because you've got the minutes of the meetings, you've got the evidence, you've got the contracts, and you're in a better position to do so. So we have laid charges against the past board of SAA as well.
And Wayne, there is, of course, this notion of 9 wasted years, but some people would say that in itself is a fallacious notion, because the issues at SAA, the issues at Eskom, predate those 9 wasted years. And there have been decisions that have had a negative impact on these entities that were taken prior to these so-called 9 wasted years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can go as far back as you want, but what we've got to do is look at what happened when government could have taken action. During the Zuma era, there's a lot of work that had to and should have been done to arrest the issues related to state capture, and yet that didn't happen. What we saw was the complete opposite: a planned, calculated effort to undermine the criminal justice system, and civil society was presenting a lot of evidence to government, who kept looking away. So particularly during the Zuma years, there was this attempt to enrich private entities, private companies, and waste taxpayers' money, and not enough effort was being put in by the state. And even today, under President Cyril Ramaphosa's rule, there's still a lot of issues related to maladministration and gross incompetence and poor governance conduct And we're having to tackle those matters right now. We've seen the Auditor General's report, which reports so much of those wasted funds in the state. And our job is multifaceted. It crosses many years and boundaries. But so you're right, it's not just confined to the 9 wasted years. The sad reality, though, is that during Jacob Zuma's rule, state capture unfolded. The Guptas got their fingers deep into the cookie jar of South Africa's finances, as did so many other entities and people. And we're having to undo that damage. But the worst thing was the undoing of the structures in the criminal justice system and the damage that was done to the NPA and the Hawks and the Special Investigations Unit, the AFU. This all has to be built up, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's taking a long time.
The question of perception is also an important one, Wayne. If you look at, for example, the tenure of a Coleman Andrews at SAA, Coleman Andrews spent about 14 months at SAA and left the entity, paid out as much as 200 million rand tax-free. Now, those are decisions that one could argue we don't pay sufficient attention to in terms of just unpacking what exactly happened there and how do you justify that sort of payout?
Well, exactly. We think it was despicable. Remember, Outa wasn't even around in those days. I remember when I was chief executive at Avis, learning about SAA's strategy at the time under Coleman Andrews, selling off all their assets, leasing them back again. I mean, we were frowning as business, saying why would they go down this road? But you know, Coleman Andrews was appointed by our government, and they adopted his strategy, and they allowed him to do this without questioning him. And he got away with this massive payout. I mean, it's despicable. And quite frankly, we believe government should go and unpack those decisions still. Right now, to this day, go and find out what happened, who was remiss in their duties, and hold those people to account. But this is what happens when government gets involved in state-owned entities that operate in businesses that they have no idea about. You know, government is not good at doing business. Government should be good at doing government. That is, providing and setting up the ability for business to do business professionally and get out of the airline. That's why we've been saying for the last year or two, sell off SA, get out of it, because it's not your game. It's not your competence. You don't have the expertise. It's a complex and competitive environment, and see exactly what's happening. SA will never fly again. It is limping along for the last year without flying, and all the other airlines are doing a great job in setting up their contracts with other partners and leaving SAA behind. So really, you know, government has to blame for what happened with SAA in the past under Coleman Andrews' watch, and we don't condone that at all. We don't support it at all. And government needs to go after the people that got it into the mess that it did.
And what about the role of the private sector here, Wayne? Because you look at companies, consultants have always been part of the problem, and the sort of monies that they have earned at these state-owned entities. You know, you look at companies like McKinsey, those consultants, Bain, and those names didn't start coming up in the Zondo Commission. They've been there as far back as that very same Coleman Andrews debacle. All of these, you know, the role of the private sector, what should be done about them? Should those directors also not be held accountable and declared delinquent?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We believe that it is despicable that the conduct that has happened. KPMG, as you said, McKinsey, Bain, ABB, as we had just heard recently, having to pay back a few billion rand. But what we like about what's happening now at Eskom is the management is doing the work that the previous management should have done. You know, Madupi and Kusile were two contracts or two big capital expenditure bills that were budgeted at 70 billion rand each. They are 3 times that price now and still not finished, years overdue. And the only people that should be doing the work of holding these contractors to account to continuously overshoot the mark and stretch these contracts out are the management of these state-owned entities. And yet they did nothing under Brian Molefe, Anush Singh. They'd done nothing at Denel and under Daniel Muncher at the time, SAA, Dudu Myeni. All of these issues are serious matters. And we believe the state should be going after all of those companies, all of their directors. We put out a statement, quite frankly, we were frustrated with the fact that the ABB suppliers to Eskom were just fined and have to pay back this money. We believe those directors should be taken to task, taken to court and jailed as well. We don't see enough private sector directors being taken to task in their role and being remiss in their duties and governance in this part of state capture, because state capture and government corruption, there's two sides to the coin. There's government on the one side and business on the other. As we see all these businesses set up by the Guptas to tap into the system. So you're quite right. We need to take those individuals to task as well. But that is the role of the state. Our role is to go after government who holds the checkbook, who uses our taxpayers' money. As Outa, we challenge them, and we go after the individuals that are complicit in the crimes.
And just finally, Wayne, coming back, because the case before us is that of Dudu Myeni, and she has been declared a delinquent director for life. Exactly what was the impact of her tenure on SAA? You said a short while ago, SAA will never fly again. So if you were to just sum it up in a nutshell, what exactly was the damage inflicted?
Just prior to her taking on the chairmanship, SAA was a profitable airline. It had clawed its way back from the Coleman Andrews mess. It was an airline that was flying. It wasn't relying heavily on bailouts. And then we just saw things turn around. Just undoing one decision, undoing the decision, the contract or the agreement with the Emirates cost SAA 2 billion rand a year. If that had been put in place, and then she purged so many good managers, Sylvain Bosk, Wolf Meyer, Cynthia Stimple, Tulem Share, all of these highly skilled people left SAA. When you lose the skills and when you start doing deals that cost you money, businesses go down. And we believe that SAA is in the current position largely because of the conduct of Dudu Myeni and those who sat with her on her board and her cohorts and her cronies that were really just brought into the system to undermine it and do what they've done. So we believe SAA's demise can largely be put at the feet of Dudu Myeni, and that is a shocking situation for this country to find itself in, because thousands of people are now losing their jobs and have lost their livelihood as a result of this individual.
Wayne Duvenage, we kind of have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Chief Executive Officer at the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse, Outa, Wayne Duvenage, talking to us about Dudu Myeni being denied an application for leave to appeal her delinquency case.